founders, people that want to, start lead projects, etc. They typically see everything that's going to go right. they never see the things that are going to go wrong, right? That's if I had $1 for every entrepreneur that I talk to that says, this is going to be a $1 billion company and here's why, right? I would be rich, right? And so I think that's a common sort of feature of entrepreneurs. It's or maybe it's a bug, not a feature. It's not a bad thing necessarily, right? That bug is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, for entrepreneurs to sort of be optimistic and confident in what you're doing. But you've got to this is where the mental health component comes in and why it's so important, because you effectively have to split your brain into two parts. Like, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. It's going to be shit. It's not going to work. Like, that person said they liked it, but when she said that, she actually just kind of like smirked when she said it. Oh, well, this other woman said she liked it too, but I've known her for 20 years. Right? You've got to be able to discount your own nonsense, right? Your own high belief of yourself. Because like typically what you can do when you do that is you focus on the right set of things that are going to draw the value creation for the customer that you're building, as opposed to like what you want, right? That's a bias, and that operates from a place of ego, right? So I try to steer founders away from that as much as I humanly can, but I think it really comes down to sort of fracturing your brain into two parts. I'm going to be a great entrepreneur. This is a great idea. I don't know anything about this. This might not work at all, right?
Are you ready to dive deep into meaningful discussions, explore personal stories, and gain practical insights that can transform your approach to mental fitness? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Real Talk Mental Fitness Podcast, where open conversation and authentic connections come together to empower your mental well-being. I'm your host, Chinazom, and I'm so excited to have you here with us today. All right, I'm going to do this introduction because I'm really, really excited at the person that we have today to talk with. But I'm going to start off with, if you haven't listened to the last one, I implore you to go and listen to that, because we had blood, we had mayhem, we had murder on that. Yes, we had the chief joy officer, the crazy man who decided to bring joy to the workplace. So definitely catch that one. But today I have someone who, to me, is like an elite athlete. This is a guy who's able to sprint and do a marathon. You find that very few in people, because I once got a sprinter to do a marathon and the guy is still not speaking to me today. I really want to learn how our guest today is able to do that at the same time, build multiple companies and still maintain his mental fitness and take a break. And we had the pleasure of meeting him when we went to Black Tech event in Baltimore. So I'm super excited about today and I can't wait to dive in. I'm going to let him do a little introduction. We've got our very own Luke Cooper with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here on Dreamcatchers. I just listening to your prior episodes, I can see so much value being transferred to your audience through the words and wisdom of the people that you have on. I have no idea why you have me on, but I'm nonetheless excited to be here. Very, very thankful to be here as well. It's been a journey. There's no question about it. I started my career as an M&A attorney a long time ago, 23 years ago, when I came to Baltimore, not really sure, sort of directionally where I was going, knowing I wanted to be an entrepreneur, not sure of how to transition from the practice of law into entrepreneurship, into corporate acquisitions or anything else that I've done. It's only a result of a myriad of perspectives and well-intentioned people, mentors that I've had around me that have helped me sort of draw upon, their wisdom, their experience, to make some of the decisions I made to navigate, sort of the entrepreneurship journey. I went on after, practicing law for 3 years. I'm actually still a licensed lawyer, although I don't practice anymore. I went on to build two companies, bankrupt one company and build two companies over the course of 15 years. So two software companies, well-known, exits here in the state of Maryland, that companies I built from an idea and then sold them to Fortune 300s. And then, a company that I'm very proud that I bought this company out of bankruptcy and, spent basically my entire, time in my MBA program at Babson trying to figure this business out, and then ultimately putting it back into bankruptcy. And I was so broke, I couldn't even go to my MBA graduation, the commencement. And so, those experiences have shaped me. They've given me, a level of, deep empathy and humility for founders and for, entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs as well, right? Both of the companies that I exited, I actually stayed with, the Fortune 300s that acquired us for a very short period of time, and just seeing all of the talent that existed in these places, all the great people that, had great ideas and wanted to like be a part and just feel that energy that comes from a startup, that startup culture when a company's at its early foundational, sort of moments, and not really sure how to navigate that from a corporate perspective. So I was happy to bring some of those, skill sets, to the corporate world, as a way to sort of tease out some of the talent that I saw in places like Assurant and Khaki and others, and State Farm.
Okay. That's awesome. And that's why you're here, Luke, because you're celebrating the wins and the losses. I mean, to talk about that bankruptcy story, I can't imagine what that must have been like at the time, but thank you for sharing that with us. And we're so excited to get into this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're definitely very excited. And I think that's one of the places where I'm trying to go to. So we talk about mental fitness, and we know a lot of our listeners are people who have actually, they're tired of corporate and all of a sudden they want to go and do it for themselves. But that's scary. Yeah, it's really, really scary. And I'd love to hear more about your mental fitness and where did you find the courage to keep going through the failures and keep pushing through?
Yeah, I think as humans, right, like we've been around for a long time, right? Hundreds of thousands of years, in the form that we are today. And we've got all these mechanisms that keep us alive, right? And like we don't always keep track of the things that we need and we don't need, right? We haven't, I'm a vegan. I've been vegan for, now 11 years. But I have incisors, right? Like I don't need incisors. I'm not shredding meat, right? But like all these tools and things that we have, sort of been blessed with as humans are there to protect us. But there's a bunch of mental things that I think, we carry with us that sometimes prevent us from taking risk that we should take, right? And we don't really know how to take it. And I think to get out of that, you need a different perspective. Number one, I think you need a vision for your life. I was very fortunate at the very, sort of earliest, phases of my entrepreneurship journey at 12. One of my first companies was a solar powered microwave business. And I sold, hot dogs in the microwave, and I sold the microwaves themselves. I made money. I sold, I got, basically, the science and business plan competition winner, the top award for that in my school. And what it did for me is it built healthy self-esteem, right? It built confidence in me that, I could have a thing. I could think about a thing. I could go try a thing. I could then try to, promote or sell a thing. And if I'm unsuccessful, I could try again. And then I could sell a thing successfully, make money from it. And I could do that again. It's a repeatable process. And like that was a foreign concept to me as a 12-year-old kid growing up in abject poverty, in the projects of Bridgeport, Connecticut. My father was in prison, right? Like a young man, a young boy gets a lot of who he is, his ethos from his father. And my father just wasn't around, unfortunately through the first 12 years of my life. And so I had to go find that in, great young men and mentors and great women around me. My mom and, aunts and uncles and other people around me that were, helping me, sort of shape my mentality about risk taking, about having courage. Right. And so like fast forward, having built, 2 successful companies, hired, literally hundreds of employees over the course of, 10 plus years. I've had a chance to now like reflect on some of those experiences. And I've also had a chance to reflect on, some of what I've, told, and coached and mentored some of the people that have worked for me. And, some of the things I've coached them on, I think are very relevant to folks that are, looking to make that transition, from inside of a company to their own thing, or starting a thing or something else. Right. And I call it, one of the things I would tell my team are, to sort of help with the process of like building, courage and making tough decisions. I called it plus minus equal. Right. I think you can't do this alone, right? You need people around you, right? And you need, number one, there are three things that you need, plus minus equal, right? The first thing you need is someone who's better than you, right? You got to find a person who's better than you. If you're inside of a corporate America and, there's somebody who, does the job that you want to do, you got to find a way to make contact with that person and get inside their head. Find out how they've done what they've done, where they, what kind of obstacles did they face when they were on their, way to doing what they were doing. Don't make assumptions, right? I think we do that a lot. We say, okay, that person ahead of me is a white dude that went to Harvard, right? And I'm a black woman that grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and I only went to Loyola, right? And so right away, right there, you put yourself below that person right away, right? Don't do that. But then beyond that, don't assume that person has had no hardships that you can learn from, right? Like maybe they haven't had hardships that are at the volume and magnitude of the ones that you've encountered growing up in poverty or growing up with, as an immigrant. I mean, there's a lot of, different ways to experience challenges in life, right? But like you can always learn from them, right? And if that person's in the seat that you want, like, do whatever you can to like make connection with that person and learn from some of the experiences that they've had and like how they got in there and what they had to overcome. So find someone who's better than you and try to learn from them. Another way to think about that, if you're inside of a company and you want to, figure out the startup journey, maybe you don't know a lot of startup people, right? But start with the end in mind, right? If let's say you work for State Farm, you could probably find the right person who works in the corporate development team who led, 6 of the last acquisitions for the company. And then that person can put you in touch with the founders of those companies who probably work inside of State Farm now. Go talk to them. Like, what was that startup journey like? Like, did you know that you were going to sell your company to State Farm? Right? Like, why did you start a company to begin with? What did you have to overcome? Like, people are typically very evocative when you approach them that way, particularly if, you've got some common connection like that. Like they were acquired by your company. And so, so we often overlook like the things that the opportunities to learn that will help us in our present situations achieve, our most ambitious goals. We just step over those things often. So again, plus minus equal. The first thing is find someone who's better than you. Second thing is, find somebody who's up and coming, right? Because like not up and coming. Find someone who is equal to you, right? Because someone who's equal to you, right, can challenge you, right? They can challenge. Like if I'm Michael Jordan and I'm playing against a D3 overweight, very poor basketball player,
yeah,
I'm not going to make that person much better. Right. I'm not going to make what I say and like what I talk about, some of the lessons that I've learned, but me playing that person one-on-one is not going to make me much better. And it's probably not going to make him or her that much better. Right. And so find somebody who's roughly doing the same thing as you. Right. Because that person can challenge you there because they're learning also. And they might be learning in a slightly different way, in ways that, they'll ask questions and probe, about how you know things. And those things will challenge you, right? In a good way, right? I think also what it does is it starts to create a level of community. And community is so important when you think about mental health, right? Because some of, what has to happen for you to be successful in starting a thing when there was nothing before it, whether you're inside of a company or you are, doing it de novo as an unemployed person, so community is like super important. It reduces the fear of like aloneness, of like you doing this completely alone. Yeah, you might have no employees in the beginning, and you've got nobody around you. But if you've got a community of advisors and other folks that you can reach out and talk to, that it's going to make that fear and that lack of that lack of community go away, right? So I think having a community around you or somebody who's equal to you will help to create that. And then lastly, I think life is also about giving back. So find somebody who is less than you that you can teach and train, right? Because one of the ways that we retain information, right? How do, we think about, again, civilization and how we got here, over, hundreds of thousands of years is because of the passing of information, right? The passing of knowledge that, helped us to know that, okay, this trail over here is where the wolves, they always come through this way. So we're not going to ever go or set up, our abode in this area because that's going to be bad for us, right? And so I think having somebody quote unquote less than you that might be up and coming is a way for you to transfer knowledge and also, reinforce some of what you're learning about, some of the new concepts that might carry your business or your idea or your project forward.
Mm. Yeah. I love this. I've never ever heard anyone say this plus equal minus, but it's something I've always like whenever I'm playing sports, like I will always look at the guy that's really good and I'll just go and try and challenge him. He's like, I may get my ass handed to me, but I'm like, if I keep getting closer, sooner or later, I'm going to be better than everybody else. I never thought about the equal bit, but it's having somebody that always pushes you. It's always like, I think it's always going to bring the best out of you. But I always love the minus one because so there's somebody who I've worked with for a long time and I caught up with him. I've been working with him for 6-7 years. Now we're friends. And he was telling his mum introduced him to me and he was saying like, he couldn't believe that I was saying that I learned so much from him. And I was like, dude, like all the stuff I was putting inside of you was so that when I come back, I can actually remember what I said about myself. Also, as you're growing, you're now showing me new things I didn't even know about.
That's right.
I will say, no, I also thought that was really profound, Luke. Thank you for sharing that. But I will say the point around the marker, the person who's better than you or ahead of you, is a challenging one in practice. Because Chinezum, do you remember when I first moved over to London and he's a triathlete. I tried to keep up on a run. I almost dislocated my left shoulder. It was,
oh my God.
My shoulder felt like it was going to fall off for a long, long time. So I think that's the one thing I'd ask about when you're looking at someone who's ahead of you. How do you keep yourself from comparing in a way that becomes detrimental to you? Like what kind of things do you say to yourself to make sure that net that exercise is value added?
Yeah, just reinforcing of the fact that you're unique and special, and by yourself, right? And the goals and the vision that you have for your life is unique and special by itself, right? Like that, they're on their own race. Like comparing yourself to anyone else is only going to bring in feelings of inadequacy or or fear, quite frankly, right? That you can't do what you set out to do. I try to be inspired, by when I see someone who's doing it at a high level, above me, beside me. It makes me more inquisitive, right? I want to ask them 1,000 questions. I want to get close to them so I understand, the intricacies of how they got to where they are and like what challenges they overcame, what tools and tips and tricks they use to overcome some of those things, what they're doing today, right now, to sort of manage, some of the things behind them that have happened that might, be challenging circumstances that they had to overcome, right? All of those things are things that I try to like tap into, but, comparing yourself is never going to yield a level of true insight into who you are. You can only get that by looking at yourself and what you've accomplished or haven't accomplished, and then asking yourself why. Like, why haven't I done those things? For example, like I talk to a lot of corporate types that have great ideas, right? And they're I would call them entrepreneurs. They've got either projects internally that they want to spin up, or they're even things external to the company that they want to build and launch and start. And they compare themselves to like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, right? They're like, well, and then that like essentially stunts them. It forces them to a level of immobility and lack of movement, because like you just get afraid. You're like, well, he's worth $400 billion, right? Like I can never do that. I can never create that. Well, stop comparing yourself to him, right? Then like ask yourself, well, if you've got this idea, well, have you written down 10 people that you need to go talk to about the idea? Have you written down, so 10, specific things about the idea that like would tell you this is an idea worth pursuing? Have you taken any material steps toward that thing, right? That's what we need to, that's where the focus needs to be, not on like other people and like what they have or haven't done.
Mm. And this is getting me to my next question of, like you said, I think you said it's really important to have a vision if you want to have courage, start doing something. And then there's also somewhere where the way our brains are wired, we've been around for thousands of years. Our brain is always looking at what can go wrong. That's the way it protects us. And then the problem with that is it doesn't allow us to take risks, but it doesn't look at what can go right. Like we can do 99 things that go right. We do one thing that goes wrong, and our brain would be like, just keep robbing us of our courage. We won't remember the other ones. And about trying to get our courage is, you can have this strong vision, but it's like, to reduce the fear, like how do we start taking actions to kind of stop the brain from kind of robbing our energy from that? And I'd love to hear, it's all right having the vision, but how do you keep taking action, especially when things are not going well and it looks like you're crazy and you should just give up?
Totally. I think you're absolutely right. Only thing I would vary there is I think oftentimes with entrepreneurs, founders, people that want to, start lead projects, etc., they typically see everything that's going to go right. they never see the things that are going to go wrong. Right. That's if I had $1 for every entrepreneur that I talk to that says, this is going to be $1 billion company and here's why, right? I would be rich. Right. And so I think, that's a common, sort of feature of entrepreneurs. It's or maybe it's a bug, not a feature. It's not a bad thing necessarily, right? That bug is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, for entrepreneurs to sort of be optimistic and confident in what you're doing. But you've got to, and this is where the mental health, component comes in and why it's so important, because you effectively have to split your brain into two parts. Like, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. It's going to be shit. It's not going to work. Like, that person said they liked it, but when she said that, she actually just kind of like smirked when she said it. Oh, well, she said, well, this other woman said she liked it too, but I've known her for 20 years. Right? You've got to be able to discount your own nonsense, right? Your own high belief of yourself. Because like typically what you can do when you do that is you focus on the right set of things that are going to draw, the value creation for the customer that you're building, as opposed to like what you want, right? That's a bias, and that operates from a place of ego, right? So I try to, steer founders away from that as much as I humanly can. But I think it really comes down, to sort of fracturing your brain into two parts. I'm going to be a great entrepreneur. This is a great idea. I don't know anything about this. This might not work at all, right? So I think that's one. I think secondly, I'd say is write stuff down, right? Like a lot of entrepreneurs, they will think about all the bad things that'll go wrong in a business, right? But they never really sort of follow through, the full line of and sequence of things that could go right, and like how that could be, great for themselves, right? So I can't say how many entrepreneurs I've talked to, and they say they're going to build a great business, it's going to go amazing, and I'm like, well, what does your first 10 customers look like? How are you going to acquire them? What are they going to pay you? How are you going to get the next set of 10 customers after that? And then once you get those 20 customers, what does the business look like? Is it a $20 million business? Is it a $10 million business? Okay, let's say it's a $10 million business. Let's say it's a $10 million business. What does that mean? What does that mean for you personally? Does that mean that you put $1 million in your pocket every year? Does that mean that you can distribute $1 million to investors? Does that mean that you could sell the company? Right? These are questions that I think if we just get curious about these kinds of questions, right, it takes the fear away, because now we say, okay, if I am successful in figuring this part out, this is what the bounty is. This is what the reward is, right? Everybody wants to reward. Our brains are hardwired to be receptive to rewards. And so, if we can define those rewards for ourselves by writing down, what the possible rewards look like, right? Again, like if you're starting from the end in mind, you work at a company like State Farm and you go talk to Corp Dev, who puts you in touch with one of the founders that got acquired, who put $20 million in their pocket. Like what better place to get that information? What better place to get that understanding of what, is truly at stake, is truly possible, right? And so when I think about, sort of, how to just start, some of it just is like writing things down, and carrying it all the way through, so you have an understanding of like what the reward is if you're successful. I can't say how many entrepreneurs just start things and they have no concept of like where the thing is going to go. Yeah, it's just like, and like sometimes that's okay, right? I think if it's a social media thing or something like that, like maybe that's okay, right? But I think most businesses are not that, right? And not even most acquisitions are that, right? The majority of acquisitions are enterprise SaaS point solutions, right? They're things that like, you built this to fix this problem, right? And I need this to offer it to all of my other customers to fix their problems and make us $1 billion, right? And so, those are just some of the thoughts that I have around how to get those ideas out of your head and onto paper and like actually start. Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of another insightful episode of Real Talk. We hope you've enjoyed today's discussion and have gained valuable insights into enhancing your mental well-being and productivity. Now, before we wrap things up, we have an exciting opportunity for you. Are you curious about your mental fitness score? Want to know how you can improve your overall well-being and boost your productivity? Well, we have just the thing for you. Head over to our show notes, where you will find a link to our exclusive mental fitness quiz. It's a quick and easy assessment that will provide you with a personalized score and actionable steps to enhance your general well-being and productivity. It's like having a personal coach in your pocket. And don't forget to subscribe to Real Talk on your favorite podcast platform. By subscribing, you'll be the first to know when we release new episodes filled with valuable discussions, expert interviews, and practical tips for leading a fulfilling life. You can also connect with me, Chinazom, on social media. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily inspirations, updates on upcoming episodes, and behind-the-scenes peeks into the Real Talk community. Remember, your mental well-being matters, and taking small steps towards improvement can make a significant difference in your life. We're here to support you on your journey. Thank you for tuning in today, and a special thank you to all our listeners who have joined us on this incredible podcasting adventure. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep striving for a better version of yourself. Take care and stay mentally fit.